Live with CDP Sports Talk, a weekly sports and entertainment podcast sponsored by Barry Cullen Chevrolet. Live on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, Twitch, and LinkedIn. And on audio via Apple Podcast, Google Podcast, Spotify, Anchor FM, iHeartRadio, Amazon Music, Radio Public, and TuneIn. Now, here's your host, Chris Palme.
Good evening, everybody. Welcome to Live with CDP Sports Talk, Season 6, Episode 12, overall 287 tonight. I hope everyone's doing well on this Monday, June 12th, 2023. As always, Barry Cullen... Sorry, I'll start over again, guys. As always, Live with CDP Sports Talk is sponsored by Barry Cullen Chevrolet, 905 Woodlawn Road West in the Guelph Auto Mall. Check out barrycullen.com for the newest selection of new and pre-owned GM vehicles, or give them a call at 519-824-0210. That's 519-824-0210, or email them at info@barrycullen.com as well. Guys, I'm waiting for my guest tonight to come on. He is from TSN. He's a TSN reporter with SportsCentrre and the CFL on TSN, and his name is Matthew Scianitti. So Scianitti, yeah, I believe I pronounced that right, hopefully. He'll be on to talk a little bit about his career and about the 2023 CFL season. Matthew covers some of the Eastern teams. He covers the Argonauts, the Ottawa Red Blacks, and the Hamilton Tiger Cats. So just bear with me, and Matthew should be on shortly as well. So while we're waiting for Matthew, we got some CFL action this week. Calgary and Ottawa Thursday night. Winnipeg, Saskatchewan on Friday night. Edmonton at BC on Saturday night. And the Hamilton Tiger Cats at the Toronto Argonauts this Sunday night at 7 o'clock at BMO Field. The Argos will put up their 18th Grey Cup banner, and the first 10,000 fans will get a Argos replica Grey Cup ring from last year as well. And I will be at that game as a fan, sitting in section 115, row 10, seat 2. So I'm looking forward to that. Hamilton is going to try to bounce back from their loss to Winnipeg on Friday night, and the Argonauts, this is their first game of the year. So guys, just bear with me. And again, we're just waiting for my guest, Matthew Scianitti, from TSN for coming on. So it's just going to be a minute or two. While we're waiting for Matthew, I might just play a little clip of my interview with one of the Argonauts at the University of Guelph training camp, Spencer Nichols, Western Mustang alumni, and now a fullback for the Toronto Argonauts. So as we wait for Matthew to come on, I'm just going to play a clip of my interview with Spencer Nichols, fullback with the Toronto Argonauts. Palme here. I'm at Alumni Stadium at the University of Guelph, where the CFL Grey Cup champion Toronto Argonauts are holding their training camp again here this year in 2023. And I have a special guest I'm going to do here. His name is Spencer Nichols. He's a fullback, and he was drafted from the Western Mustangs. Spencer, thoughts on your college career at Western and being drafted into the CFL by the Toronto Argonauts, the Grey Cup champions, by the way?
Yeah, the college career was awesome. I had a great time at Western. Loved the school. I'm from London, so I grew up around the team, watching the team. So it was a really easy decision to stay home and play for them. And being drafted here to the Argos is just a dream come true. We get to stay home close and come to a great organization like this. So I'm all happy, and I'm excited to get to work.
Thoughts on Greg Marshall, your head coach at Western?
Oh, a great coach. Hands down, probably one of the best football coaches that I've had, and probably one of the better men that I've met in my life. He's there for everyone on the team. No matter what you've been through, what your background is, he treats you like his own son, and it's just a great atmosphere there being with him.
It's a great school, and I remember the legendary Larry Haler as the head coach as well. So tremendous. How many years did you play at Western?
So I've just finished my 5th year, 4 years of football. I do have 1 year of eligibility left. Things got a little messed up because of COVID, so I had the year off there. But yeah, I got 1 year of eligibility left to finish off my 5 year.
What did you major at Western?
Majored in history, and I have a minor in sociology.
Okay. And what was it like the day in the CFL draft when they announced they were going to draft you to the Toronto Argonauts? What was that feeling like?
It was an amazing feeling. honestly wasn't expecting to go in the fourth round, so we were just kind of all talking around the TV, watching the rounds 3 to 8 go through on the TV, and my name popped up for the Argos, and I was around with some close friends of my family, and the room just turned into it was electric in there. Everyone was screaming, cheering, and it was just a really great night.
Favorite moment at Western, and what's your thoughts on the Argonauts training camp so far here at the University of Guelph?
Favorite moment at Western has to be winning the Vanier Cup versus Stask over in Laval. That was a crazy game, and just the overall season there was just the work and all the brothers around us. It was just a great overall year. And sorry, the second question?
Actually, I forgot. If I remember, I'll remember. Me bad on that.
No, yeah, that's my bad.
But fullback, did you have any mentors, and who were some of your favorite athletes when you were growing up, Spencer?
Yeah, just watching like mentors through the CFL. We have Dave Mackey, an old Western fullback. He's been over in BC, and he's just been tearing up the league. So it's been a guy I've been kind of watching, and when he comes back over the off season, I've got some training in with him. So I'm pretty familiar with his gameplay, and I'd like to hopefully follow his footsteps in his career.
And just quick thoughts on Ryan Dinwiddie and the Toronto Argonauts organization so far.
So far, it's been awesome. Just
all right, guys, that was my interview with Spencer Nichols, fullback with the Toronto Argonauts, and just my guest just popped on right now. Good evening, Matthew. How you doing? Hi, Matthew. Can you hear me?
I can, Chris. How are you?
Good. How are you? Thank you so much again for doing this. I really appreciate it.
I appreciate your patience, my friend.
Hey, it's part of the media industry, and you have to always be flexible.
Yeah, I can tell you all about that. I definitely know all about that.
I was going to say congratulations on 10 years with TSN. I guess you joined them in 2013.
I did. I've been with TSN since January 1st, 2013. It's been a very blessed, amazing ride, and I feel really, really lucky to have spent time not only covering sports all over the world, but spent time with a great team of people and being able to meet people who are so passionate about storytelling. Obviously, not just in Canada, but around the world.
Absolutely. I guess you got a busy week ahead of you with the. I guess you got Calgary, Ottawa Thursday night, and then you got the Hamilton Toronto game Sunday night at BMO Field.
You know what? In the past, I would be all over the Red Blacks, but my good friend Claire Hanna has really taken the reins in Ottawa, and she'll also be going to the Women's World Cup in just a few weeks. I will be in Ottawa at the end of the month when Claire goes, off to the Women's World Cup to cover the whole tournament. But this week I will be at BMO Field Sunday when your Argos, Chris, unveil their Grey Cup banner against the Hamilton Tiger Cats.
Yeah, I will be there as a fan. And when I grew up, this team couldn't win nothing. And now, since 1983, this is their 8th Grey Cup championship in 39 years. And I really hope this time the fan support will start coming back slowly at BMO Field.
Yeah, I think it's really that's a two-pronged thing. The one thing that the general manager, Mike Pinball Clemens, has long said is having sustained success. If you look at the Argos since 1983, and I'm sure the team that they will face, the Ticats, would love to have this, but the Argos' success has kind of been sputtering. You have a win in 83, and then obviously in 91, 95, 96, 2004, 2012, 2017, and then obviously last November, but no consistency. And I think you can also bridge that to some of the issues they've had in the stands. That's not the only issue. Certainly there's been myriad reasons that those with MLSE, those who have been involved with the Argos for a long time, kind of lament and want to go over. But the fact is, has said having sustained success is what brings in a culture. And I can say quite definitively, the Argos, the fan base is passionate. They are invested. They love their team. And I think there are no better ambassadors of the Toronto Argonauts than their fans, because they want to open the gates and share the Argos with as many people as possible. And I know there are very hardworking people within the organization, whether they be in the equipment room with longtime equipment guy Denny Webb, to those who work in the front office, Chris Schufeld, who is one of the executives there, who certainly is passionate about making the Argos successful, to Matt Black, who's a former player, now works in the front office / administration. So there's a lot of people in that organization who have a lot of good ideas. I hope, certainly with Chad Kelly coming in, that they can try to find some of that sustained success. I don't profess to be an Argos fan. I long ago said that I wouldn't pick a CFL team. But it's always nice to hear a loud crowd at BMO. There are always loud Argos fans, but to see a few more bums in seats would benefit everybody.
Yeah, and I'm particularly lucky because the team had their training camp here in Guelph, so I was able to, thanks to Chris Bilanovich, cover the team and do some interviews with the players and stuff. And one thing too, Matthew, I wanted to bring up with you, even though I'm a fan of the Argonauts, I'm also a fan of the CFL. And one thing as well is, you know, this is being in the media, Matthew, it gives you a different perspective from being just a fan as well.
Yeah, the one thing about the CFL, I could perhaps, and although I've never covered it in person, I think this is akin to Aussie rules football. And Aussie rules football, and to its credit, has been able to have wider success. I mean, 100,000 people go to watch in the Melbourne Cricket Ground for the grand final every year, but it is authentically Australian, and there is no doubt about it. There's no, certainly there's bits and pieces of rugby and rugby league, much like there is in the CFL, but it is authentically an Australian sport. The CFL is authentically very much a Canadian sport. And because of that, it is, and this is not by any means meant to knock down the league, but it is a community league in that sense. And some of the greatest moments I've had, and I can rattle off a handful of them, from the 2014 East Final to the 2013 Grey Cup to the 2014 East Final in Hamilton, to even the 2019 Eastern Semi in Montreal, when it was packed, and you had this feeling that maybe Vernon Adams Jr. and Kahari Jones were the guys to bring back some glory to the Alouettes, who used to be the stable, the marquee franchise in the CFL. It feels like it matters to a really intimate group of people, and that's still 15, 20, 25, 30, 40, 45,000 people, which is really cool. And I think that's something that you get in Aussie rules football, maybe too in the National Rugby League down in Australia. But I think that's something that those who love the CFL, they value that community. They value the people who are part of it. And the one thing that's made the CFL so successful and such a long-term sustainable partner in a lot of ways for TSN is the fact that CFL fans love the league completely. You might be an Argos fan, but you're going to watch the Owls. You're going to watch the Elks. You're going to watch every team, all 4 games every weekend, and that's really cool. And I think that's the one thing about this league, is when you're watching every weekend on all 4 games, as I did this weekend, and I'm sure you caught as many games as you could, it really does feel like a community experience.
Absolutely. And the CFL has been great with what I'm trying to do, get into radio at the age of 50. And there's one other league that reminds me of the CFL, is the National Lacrosse League. They've been really great with me as well. The players, the coaches have been accessible, and the fans are so passionate about their teams, especially the Buffalo Bandit fans. They're diehard fans. They remind me so much of Argonaut fans.
Yeah, I think the one thing about, again, this is not meant to be to put an asterisk on it, but one thing about what outside of the Big Four, that's how I'll try to describe it the best I can. Outside of the NFL, the NBA, MLB, and the NHL, and perhaps Major League Soccer is getting to that point, but I still think that's very much a community-based sport, given maybe some of their TV ratings, at least at this moment, is people are passionate because it's a part of their time. The National Lacrosse, and I was fortunate to cover the last time the Toronto Rock won it at Scotiabank Arena back in 2011 in Bob Watson's final game I was very fortunate to cover that game. And what struck me was one of my first assignments as a newspaper reporter was just the commitment. This was like going to a church. This was like this to them meant everything. Those fans, because it's a group of people that they grew up with in the sport, guys that they have followed throughout their careers through house league and club, amateur and pro. It's an investment. The one thing that is certainly true of every sport is it's all about money, but more so about the big four sports. It's very monetized in a number of ways. But some of the leagues outside the top four sports, they have passionate fans because these fans know how precious those leagues are in a world where contracts are growing bigger, where TV dollars and media dollars are enormous. That they value these leagues and they are really casting their vote for their league, for their teams, for their players every time they go to an event.
Absolutely, well said. And I grew up in the 70s as a CFL fan and NFL fan too. And I don't understand why people have to pick. You can like the CFL for what it's like and the NFL as well, and college football. And I'm a football fan in general. So I've never had a problem with the CFL rules from the NFL, but unfortunately, that one decade, Matthew, the 80s, the blackout rule, I really think it hurt the league long term with all those games being blacked out.
Yeah, if hindsight is always 2020, but it is the lamentable lost generation. I am a child of the 80s. I was born in 1985, and I can still remember the first game my father took me to go see the Argos in the early 90s, and I know that there's an entire generation, excuse me, especially in Southern Ontario, of young people. Well, I'm not that young anymore, but of people of a certain age who don't know the CFL, can't identify with it, and I think that's a real shame. There are pockets of people from the 80s and 90s and even the 2000s, and I'm talking about places like Winnipeg and Saskatchewan, certainly, and even pockets of it in BC, and it's going to be great. I mean, I have to say this. We do lament maybe a lost generation when lockouts were the rule, when the league felt that it wasn't getting maybe the ticket revenue or the bums and seats that it wanted. But to see what the league is trying, as much as we might look back, to look forward, this weekend is going to be amazing. I can't wait to see what Amar Doman has done, and I can't wait to see that game in BC, because one of the great cup, and I didn't cover this is the last Grey Cup I wasn't at, and well, apart from this past one in Regina, but I wasn't at the 2011 Grey Cup. But when the Lions won it in Wally Bono's last Grey Cup, it really felt like it mattered to British Columbia. Like, it really felt like it. They there've been some amazing CFL moments in Vancouver. You think of the 1994 Grey Cup and Louis Pasaglia kicking the game-winning field goal against the Baltimore Stallions, but there is such a not untapped, but there's, in a lot of markets, I really think there's a waiting passion, and certainly it's going to be helped by LL Cool J making an appearance this week. But I certainly want to look forward, and I know Randy Ambrosi is a huge proponent of saying how successful the league is, or league can be, excuse me, and looking for a 10th team and Touchdown Atlantic, and looking forward to a Grey Cup in BC next year, and then in Winnipeg, and really trying that forward momentum. Sure, we can look back at the lost generation of the 80s and early 90s, but there's so much to love about the CFL, and really so many things to feel heartened by, to look forward to.
Absolutely, and I'm looking forward to all the games this week, and being down in Toronto Sunday for the home opener against the Hamilton Tiger Cats. Matthew, I just wanted to get into a few questions with you, and then we'll get into some CFL. This one I wanted to ask you: how did you end up with TSN, and what has that experience been like over the years? And do you have a most memorable interview you've done in your career so far?
I never wanted to be on TV. I did not know that. Writer. I was a writer. I wrote for soccer magazines back about 15, 16 years ago. And I was, was in my early 20s. And I went back to school for my grad degree and was lucky enough to freelance for just a couple newspapers, wrote some magazine articles, worked for the CBC Sports online. And then I was very fortunate to be a part of the National Post sports section. And for those who know the National Post sports section, you're talking about some of the great writers, sports writers in Canada: Bruce Arthur, Dave Feschuk, Sean Fitzgerald, just to name a few that went there. Mark Masters was there as well, and I was there for 2 internships, and then I was there on a year contract, and I covered everything: figure skating, auto sports, rugby, soccer for a little bit, and then the CFL became a beat that I was given and was told, hey, I was entrusted with this, and it really helped me in terms of, I guess, building a reputation for myself. Newspapers are, as we saw unfortunately today with some of the layoffs with The Athletic, the newspapers and print media can go through real flux. And I lost my job, but my work must have left an impression on a couple people, because I was called for a screen test on TSN. It went absolutely horribly. And if not for the generosity of Rod Smith, the immortal Rod Smith at TSN, the voice of TSN, really the voice of Canadian sports in a lot of ways, I spent time with him during my screen test, and that eventually turned into a 6-month internship, and it's been the greatest honor of my life, because I've been able to spend time not just talking to. I mean, I've covered, apart from a Super Bowl and a World Series, I have covered everything there is to cover all over the world. And it to me, I feel like the luckiest man alive, because I've been able to speak to Olympians. I've been able to speak to junior hockey players. I've been able to speak to some of the greatest athletes in our country's history when they've won and when they've lost. And I always use this example. I spoke to Marie-Philippe Poulin after Canada lost the gold medal game in the 2018 Olympics in Pyeongchang, South Korea. And it was a very touching interview with an athlete who lives and breathes her sport, who is so devoted to her teammates, and who told me that she was going to think about that loss in the shootout every single day for 4 years. And in that moment, a lot of this job is about human interaction and communication. And I felt a genuine intensity, and I don't mean that in a bad way. I mean, like, she was so honest that I could feel her honesty. And 4 years later, to know that someone every single day was committed to one moment every single day for 4 years, and then to make good on it. I mean, I wasn't at the 2022 Olympics in Beijing, excuse me. But that interview, to see the tears in her eyes, to see the passion, the emotion, the defeat, and the resolve to come back. I could go on for a solid couple hours about some of the interviews I've done, but that one has always stuck with me and will always stick with me.
And the one thing I've been doing the last couple of years since the pandemic's been over is doing live interviews, Matthew. And as much as I love doing the virtual podcast, there's nothing better than when you do a live interview with somebody. You get to really know them more than you do virtually.
Yeah, interaction is and communication, as I've said, not to repeat myself, but it is the core of the business. And I started at TSN. Being a newspaper reporter, sometimes it can be a little haphazard. You're trying to learn the dance of trying to interact with someone genuinely to get their genuine thoughts on things while you're sticking a recorder. And then it doesn't get any easier when you've got a camera over your shoulder and you're sticking a mic in their face. But over time, I've tried to be as genuinely, authentically myself, because I have found, especially in the last couple of years, especially since coming out of the pandemic, that people on many aspects of life, and that's okay. Disagreement is not a bad thing, but if two people can genuinely connect and understand each other and listen to each other, and especially when you're in emotional moments with athletes who it's not just wins and losses on the line. It's jobs, it's money, it's the amount of time and sacrifice that athletes make. Um, Coaches, general managers, player personnel. I mean, it really is an incredibly devoted existence. And if you can speak to somebody and have a genuine connection with them and get their honest thoughts through dedicated research and preparation and um, an understanding of two people sharing their time. I'm not trying to make it poetic, but the fact is, like, this is sports is the least important, most important thing. And when everybody understands that and they connect on a human level, it makes the conversations, the in-person conversations, all the more cool.
Absolutely. Hey, and Matthew, I've always been a fan of your work, real professional. And as much as I missed the CFL on CBC growing up, I think TSN has done a great job in trying to grow the game. And Brad Smith over the years, Rod Black, Glenn Suter, yourself, so many talented people involved with the productions. And people don't realize too, Matthew, it's not just the on-air talent, it's doing Rogers TV here in Guelph as a volunteer. You see how much work there is in a broadcast with the audio guys, the camera guys, the producers, the directors. Everybody has to. It's truly a team effort, a broadcast.
Nobody will ever, CFL fans will never know how indebted they are to John Hines, to Chris Edwards, Thomas Ludwig, Franklin Rubenstein. These are people who are my family. These are people who I trust in live TV. These are the people who, when they count me in, when they count me out, guys like Jamie Rydell and Troy White. These are people who have an incredible passion for the league, and it matters to them. And certainly people can share their opinions about broadcasts and what they like and what they don't like. Everyone is absolutely entitled to their opinion, but no one will ever deny the work ethic and the passion of the people that I work with. I am very lucky. They are, in a lot of ways, we spend more time with each other than sometimes we spend with our families. And it is an absolute pleasure of mine that I get to work with the people behind the scenes, because it is a team effort. That's what's so cool, is that as much as there are two teams playing on the field, I get to play with the best team every week of the CFL and TSN. And it's the one piece of advice I give everybody who goes into live TV, something that I learned and I appreciated right from the get-go. You cannot succeed with other people around you, the people in your ear, the people behind the camera, the people whose job it is to make sure that you do your job well. And I'm very blessed to have spent, this is my 11th season now going into the CFL and TSN. No, this is my 10th season in the CFL and TSN, my 11th covering the Canadian Football League, and it is it's my pleasure every single summer that I get to work with those people.
Absolutely. And what I'm doing, Matthew, too, is I'm trying to learn as much about the TV side as the radio side as I can. And I'm learning to do digital writing as well, too. So I just feel that if I can try to do a little bit of everything, that would help me my chances as well in this industry.
Yeah, it's so true. You are what you can offer. And I've learned myself from doing writing, on air, off air, in front of camera, behind the scenes, to producing, to now hosting. I can never complain about it. Sure, we talk about time and time management and schedules that are always changing. But as I was speaking to a colleague of mine, in a lot of ways, this is the toy box of life, and that doesn't diminish it. It doesn't trivialize it. It doesn't make it a novelty. What it reminds people is hundreds of thousands of people watch the CFL and TSN every week. There are more people that watch the CFL and TSN than the last recorded ratings were for Major League Soccer in the United States, which is not to put down Major League Soccer at all. It's just to show you the legacy of the Canadian Football League. And we're talking our best games are the Grey Cup is 3, 4, 5 million people. It can peak sometimes at 7, 8, 9 million people. That's incredible. I mean, in a country of our size, in a country that's 35, 36, 37 million people, as wide as ours, to know that sometimes 1 in 60 Canadians is watching a CFL game every week. Like one game at least every week is like insane. It's just you shake your head at that number. But it's again, those aren't necessarily those aren't the numbers that I can be quoted on for chapter and verse. But it's just an example of the attention that the league gets, and just how cool it is that I get to do this job and be able to, as you say, show all those little abilities. Because if you can't market yourself and show, and this is, if nothing else, sometimes you got to sell yourself in this business. You have to sell yourself in all your abilities. So it's good, especially you working your way into this business, recognizing that.
I've been very lucky, Matthew. I've had so many great guests. It took a while to get guests on, but people start believing you and see your work. It just means a lot. In a podcast show, my radio show is only as good as its guest, and I've been very fortunate. And the CFL has been great with me as well. And any opportunities I get, Matthew, I take advantage of them.
Yeah, you have to. You have to. This is a business, especially in the Canadian Football League, where everybody values everybody, because, as I said, we all recognize how much the league means to everybody.
Absolutely. Hey, Matthew, I know you had a busy day today. Are you okay for a couple more questions, time-wise?
Fire away.
Okay. All right, because I really appreciate you doing this today again as well. Just, Matthew, just quick thoughts on the return of the CFL and the opening weekend of games, what you thought of the games, and what do you think about the Argonauts, the Grey Cup champions, actually having a bye week in week one? And I'm just trying to remember the last time a Grey Cup champion had a bye week in the first week of the season.
Well, what I will say is that it was kind of shocking, but perhaps it will benefit someone like Chad Kelly to be able to survey the league, to look. He spent a lot of time in Toronto in the offseason, taking time to go over the playbook, to spend some time with Ryan Dinwiddie, ideating things and scheming things. And he said to me yesterday when I spoke to Chad Kelly that he was looking at cues, certain visual things that he's recognized that he wants to be able to articulate to his players when he gets to the line of scrimmage and he's doing a pre-snap read. But what I imagine that he saw in that first week wasn't a lot of consistently good football, because the fact is this. In that first game, the Winnipeg Blue Bombers beat the Hamilton Tiger Cats in the first half, and they beat themselves in the second half, and then they were still able to win the game. I think the most surprising thing for everyone, only because of what his reputation is that Bo Levi Mitchell did not look comfortable, especially when he was trying to push the ball downfield, which is very, very foreign to us when watching Bo Levi Mitchell. But this is what happens when you move to a team when you're in your early 30s. Everybody will remember when Ricky Ray made it to the Toronto Argonauts, and even though we remember that the Toronto Argonauts finished 9-9 that season and won the Grey Cup, it was an inconsistent season. I covered it from start to finish, and I remember there were being a lot of frustrations in that year, and what it ultimately required the Argos to do was finally beat the bugaboo of beating the Montreal Alouettes in Montreal to get to the Grey Cup. So I think Bo has going to need some patience and need some time. I look at the other games, in particular Vernon Adams Jr. And what he was able to do against the Calgary Stampeders. If Vernon Adams played like that all the time, if he was that good and that sharp all the time, he would be an MOP in this league. I don't have any problem saying that. Like he when he's confident and he's seeing the field, he has a natural leadership quality to him that makes you think about some of the great quarterbacks in this league who, when playing in their prime, and it's an effortlessness. You see the field, you see how it flows, and things aren't playing with your eyes. And sure, there were a couple passes I imagine that Vernon would want back sometimes, that he looked like he was really trying to stick the ball in there. But overall, he was just confident, and he moved with a swagger. And Calgary without Bo, Calgary now with Jake Mayer, Calgary with now Dave Dickinson in a coach and GM role is interesting. And they've looked a lot at Kadeem Carey as the guy who's going to be the horse in that offense and really the engine of what makes them go. And we'll have to see. Ottawa and Montreal, I still want to see a lot more from both teams. Although certainly Montreal's defense at the end definitively closing the game out, 2 great tackles, and then I believe it was Ciante Evans who was able to get in front of Nick Arbuckle and tempt him a bit and to shut the game down as they did at the end. I'm sure Jason Moss will like that. And how could you not like Austin Mack? Austin Mack looked like he can, like Dalton Schoen did last year, but especially Austin Mack with his Ohio State pedigree. He looked really, really good. I think the thing that everyone in the CFL probably, I don't think is concerned about, but the Edmonton Elks and the situation there and searching for that first home win in over 1,300 days is something that if you're a fan of the CFL, I don't imagine anybody was pulling for anybody to win last night. I mean, especially if you're a neutral. But everybody, I think, just wants Edmonton to win a home game. Everyone just because I was speaking to someone who was long involved with the Elks organization or the Edmonton football team for a long time, and they were. We talked about the Argos being the 18-time Grey Cup champions. The Edmonton football team, the Edmonton Elks as they're known now, were the class organization. You're talking about a dominant organization for a long time that had some of the greatest players to ever play in Canadian football. And to see Commonwealth Stadium last year, where it looked like nobody was there, it looked like some of the years where the Argos were playing in Rogers Center. It really hurts the CFL soul to see that. So certainly you can question, even though he doesn't apparently want those questions at the end, Chris Jones with respect to some of their goal line decisions. But this is the way it is. This was Jim Barker called that a very important game between the Riders and the Elks. I don't think, though, that Craig Dickinson will be keeping Trevor Harris in a game that late again, given that it looked like that he might have helicoptered himself into a hip injury at the very end there after taking a hit. But the first 2, 3, 4 weeks of the CFL season sometimes can be a little stop and go. But I will say this. I am excited to see the Argos. I'm excited to see, especially now Jamal Peters is back. It's kind of like they got a free agent. They weren't expecting him back, and yet they got him back. To see what they're going to look like defensively, but especially offensively with Chad Kelly. There's a lot of excitement around Chad Kelly. I haven't felt this excitement around a player who he's not necessarily making his debut. But this is I haven't felt a lot of excitement around guys like I felt about Chad Kelly in a while.
I've heard the same thing too, Matthew. As an Argonaut fan, my only concern is, you know this, it's an 18-game season. It's a marathon. He gets hurt. I really like their young quarterbacks in Byron Scott and Cameron Dukes. I've interviewed Cameron. I think he's great. But do you see if Chad Kelly gets an injury, them going for a veteran quarterback, or would they just stick with Cameron and Byron Scott if something did happen to Chad?
It might be a Dukes and Scott show. It's funny. I think Chad Kelly is noticing that conversation. The one thing that struck me about Chad Kelly is that he is someone who, because his name, his legacy, and certainly some of the off-field incidents that he's been involved in, he's very aware of where he sits in his professional career. And I imagine that it's motivating for him to hear people say, well, who's behind him? Well, what happens if he gets injured? Because it's less an insult about him, and it's more a reflection of the realities of the league, which is quarterbacks get injured all the time in the CFL. You look back to the 2012 season with the Argos. Ricky Ray was the starting quarterback, but they played 4 quarterbacks that year, and it can make you feel, especially if you're a quarterback like Chad Kelly coming into a new situation, like, well, these people don't believe in me. But the one thing I will say is the belief that Chad Kelly has in himself, and it's no doubt. I mean, this is a guy who beat Alabama as a starting quarterback with Ole Miss. He won the Sugar Bowl. He's one of the greatest quarterbacks in the history of Ole Miss football, which is not an insignificant statement, especially within the wider context of college football and how competitive it is, and the history, especially in the SEC. But Chad Kelly is coming in determined. Chad Kelly is coming in with the idea that he is going to be the guy, that he knows he's the guy, that he feels like he's the guy, and he's not messing around. And I'm very, very interested and excited to see the way that he approaches the game, and I'm happy to hear there are no comparisons to Johnny Manziel. I was around here when Johnny Manziel was up here, And
Mm-hmm.
Johnny Manziel has all the talents in the world. He really does. He was the kind of guy who I watched him throw football, and I was like, this dude can throw a football. But that first game, whether it was miscommunication, whether it was preparation, whatever it was, it's never a great start for your first pass to be a pick. And when that happened, it kind of just revealed that maybe it wasn't going to work. I don't feel that way about Chad Kelly. What I feel like is a guy who is self-aware enough after all of his experiences to come in and say, this is my team, this is my moment, and I'm not worried about who's behind me.
Absolutely. And just thoughts quickly on McLeod Bethel Thompson and his time in Toronto. He was either well loved by the fan base or he was disliked. It was kind of, you either liked him or you hated him, and there was no in between. But I met him as a media member, and I thought he was really well spoken, and a lot of the guys really liked his leadership that he brought to the team.
Sorry for interrupting. The one thing I like about McLeod Bethel Thompson is he was genuine. Mac was Mac. He's not going to be different. He's not going to try to be somebody he's not. And the toughest critic of McLeod Bethel Thompson will always be McLeod Bethel Thompson. He leaves the Argos as a champion, a two-time champion, I might add. He won a Grey Cup in 2017, and then obviously started and won in 2022. And I know that matters to him. And I know having a legacy here matters to him. And his work ethic matters to him. And I know, though, that he will look back on some of the throws and those near misses and think, I had so many great opportunities to leave some lasting games, some incredible games. But I got to tell you, one of the greatest games I've ever seen, McLeod Bethel Thompson was the quarterback of when they came back against the Ottawa Red Blacks when they were 3 touchdowns down. And they came back out of nowhere. And I remember looking at McLeod Bethel Thompson's eyes post-game, and he wasn't looking at me. He was kind of looking into the future as if he knew, like, I have to take this in because when I'm not in football anymore, when I'm sitting down and I'm thinking about the game, I might win championships, I might not. I'm always going to remember this moment because in that game, he, like, especially in that second half, in the latter half of the third and into the fourth quarter, he was gutsy. He was exactly what you want a quarterback to be. He's exactly what you want a great CFL quarterback to be. And that's the one thing. It's like the NFL is such a finesse game, and quarterbacks are so regimented that there's an expectation that quarterbacks have to be near robotic. There are certainly exceptions when it comes to the greatest quarterbacks, and Aaron Rodgers being one of them, Peyton Manning, Tom Brady. But most quarterbacks are expected to follow a system and stick to the script. And if you're great, it's because you listen to your coach and you have the ability to get the ball from your hands out of your hand to the receiver's hands. But the CFL allows quarterbacks to really author some incredible moments, play in and play out. And that game, knowing MBT enough professionally, I know that he will always remember some of those comebacks as maybe more significant to him on a personal level than winning the Grey Cup.
Well said, Matthew. And I admit I was one of his skeptics when he was with the team starting in 17 and 18. But you know what? He proved a lot of the skeptics and critics wrong about him. And now I consider him one of the best Argo quarterbacks of all time. Probably in the top, I would say in the top 6 or 7.
Yeah, I mean, it's certainly, the Argos, when you think about it, it's certainly a complicated list. You have great guys like Conrad Holloway, certainly Matt Dunnigan, Damon Allen, Doug Flutie, Ricky Ray. They've had some of the greatest quarterbacks in CFL history, but they haven't had them for long enough consistently. And I think that's what, when historians look back on the Toronto, on the CFL, and I'm talking about like people who love the league, and when they look at this era, as they might have looked at the eras of the 70s and 80s, I think one of the quarterbacks that everyone is always going to remember fondly is Ricky Ray, because he is the all-time leading passer with the Edmonton football team, and the all-time leading passer with the Toronto Argonauts, and was just a guy who went out there and did his job. He was as close to a lunch pail. I'm coming to play the game, and I'm not complaining about it. I will take a hit, and I will make the throws, and I'm going to be reliable and counted on every play, all the time, week in and week out. I have never seen anyone bring out as much confidence by just being him without having to put on airs or perform or nerves or anything like Ricky Ray. And it was really, really cool. When you talk about some great Argo quarterbacks, and yeah, sure, MBT deserves his place, but it's a weird list because there have been comings and goings. But I would have to say at the top of that list, some people will go ahead and say, don't you dare besmirch Doug Flutie's name and what he did in those 2 years in 96 and 97. But I got to tell you, to see Ricky Ray single-handedly sometimes win games on his own, come in and just be an absolute just force, and to see the way guys believed in him. Certainly, I'm looking at it from the lens of only the last 10 years. But when I talk about great Argo quarterbacks, I can't talk about a great Argo quarterback without first talking about Ricky Ray.
I think he'll be a future old-time Argo. And I guess this year, Damon Allen and Daryl Mookie Mitchell are going in as all-time Argos. So Ricky Ray, I think it's just a matter of time before he's on that honor.
Yeah, certainly. And, you can't discount that 04 season. I mean, Damon Allen in Ottawa, Mike Pinball Clemens with his legendary speech in the locker room. We're going to play football like no one's ever seen us play football. It's everything in that moment, beating Dave Dickinson and the BC Lions and Wally Buono was really, really a great cup. And Damon Allen, the dual threat force that he was, undoubted Hall of Famer, undoubted multiple-time Grey Cup champion, just very, very deserving, as is Daryl Mookie Mitchell, who certainly had his success with both Toronto and Edmonton, like Ricky Ray. They are absolutely deserving to be on the all-time list.
Absolutely. And Matthew, I just got a couple more quick questions before we wrap this up. Obviously, Toronto's going to be one of the favorites in the East, but just quick thoughts on Hamilton, Ottawa, and Montreal. And are the Winnipeg Blue Bombers still the team to beat in the Western Conference?
Yes. Not only it's not a question in my mind. It's not disrespectful to anybody else to watch Winnipeg. And I mean this. I don't see the game at the same level of a Chris Jones, Orlando Steinauer, Jason I can't. I just can't see the game that way. But I can see the game well enough, and I'm close. I'm so close to the field that I understand the physical sacrifice that these men put on their bodies week in and week out, every year. And it is tough to play Canadian football. And I give this preamble because what the Winnipeg Blue Bombers have done, Kyle Walters and Mike O'Shea, to build a culture there that is uncompromising. It's, as they say, hashtag for the W. And to see them in a game in that first quarter absolutely come out and spank the Ticats and saying, like you're not ready. Like, we're coming out and we're going to show you who we are. It's not a disrespect to anybody. I mean, the Ticats had an incredible amount of turnover. There's no way when Winnipeg comes out and executes, it's very hard to keep pace with them. And it's a real credit to the Ticats in the second half, as Orlando Steinauer came out and said, you're going to see a different team. I want to see if we're going to see a different team this week, because I imagine the Argos saw that and said, if we apply pressure, we could win this. We could win this. I'm not saying that there's any amount of disrespect or they're going to take the Ticats lightly. You can't. But when I look at Hamilton, as much as there's a lot of turnover, I see their coaching staff still. It's Tommy Condell at offensive coordinator, Mark Washington at defensive coordinator. Jeff Reinbold's come back. He's been there consistently over the last 10 years as mostly their special teams coordinator. This is the culture that Orlando Steinauer has built, and certainly the front office headed by the head of Hamilton Sports Group, Scott Mitchell. Like, they have built a culture there. But the expectations are huge. They brought in Bo Levi Mitchell to win and to be and because I imagine, having gone to Grey Cups in 2013, 2014, 2019, and 2021, the Ticats are getting sick and tired of going to Grey Cups and losing. That goes without saying. So no one outside the locker room at Tim Hortons Field is going to take success and progress this season as seriously as those guys in that locker room. And Bo's a winner. You can't deny that. And no one is going to be pushing the panic button after one game. No one's going to. The Ticats have routinely showed, and they have been. You take the Bombers out of the conversation, the most consistent winners over the last in the regular season, who have showed consistency in winning in big games, are the Hamilton Tiger Cats. Apart from, maybe the second to that is the Calgary Stampeders, but certainly the Calgary Stampeders can claim to have won 2 Grey Cups and gone to 2 more Grey Cups and lost. And Bo is probably would remind me of that right away. But the Ticats know what it takes to win. Can they do it with this turnover? How much leniency will they be given? Because the specter here is Scott Milanovich is an advisor, like an assistant coach who's doing some advanced scouting for them and helping out offensively. I wonder if things don't go well, knowing how, and that's not to, far be it for me to put pressure on anybody. That's not my job, but I know that the pressure is there. There are no alarm bells, though. I know that organization well enough. There are no alarm bells. They will take a workmanlike approach. Iron sharpens iron is what the saying is in Hamilton. As for Ottawa and as for Montreal, I say it only because I've seen it before. It's real show me with those two teams. The thing about Ottawa is Jeremiah Masoli's injury really changed everything last year. And when they weren't able to go ahead and have him after Garrett Marino viciously twisted his leg, it really affected, I think, everything for them psychologically. They've got great tools there defensively. Lorenzo Malden is an absolute beast. I don't think anyone can deny that. When he wants to get through you as an offensive line, you're not going to stop him. And there were some moves he made. I think he had like a one-handed sack on Cody Fajardo. He's just nuts. He's insane. Montreal, it's tough. They have a solid ownership now, and Pierre Calipaldo. But the one thing about the Alouettes, and has to go down to Cody Fajardo, is I want to see how Cody evolves now at this stage of his career. He was part of that 2017 team in Toronto as well, don't forget. And he was able eventually to he went to BC, and then he got his opportunity in Saskatchewan, and he had some great years in Saskatchewan, really, really good years. But I imagine that this is an opportunity for him to start a new chapter and to show that he's undeniably a championship caliber quarterback in this league. So there's a lot of expectations there and unknowns just a little bit because they've had changes in regime. Both teams have had over the last year. But you know what you're getting in Hamilton. At this point, at least, if anyone's going to challenge the Argos in the East, it's going to be Hamilton. But as I said off the top, there is no team in the West that is like the Winnipeg Blue Bombers.
All right. And how much is BC going to miss Nathan Rourke?
If Vernon Adams can go ahead and play the way he played last week against the Calgary Stampeders, then I may not miss him a whole lot. Nathan Rourke is like anything, unlike anything I've ever seen. I've always heard people talk about the zip, the whoosh that a quarterback can have on the ball. I have been around some of the greatest in this league, from Ricky Ray to Henry Burris, obviously seen Zach Collaros, Trevor Harris develop in their careers, Bo Levi Mitchell. I have been around a lot, but I've never seen someone throw a football like Nathan Rourke throws a football, and at least up close. And to watch him was just like, it was someone who is devoted to the craft of being a quarterback on a mechanical level. Like he was just so good at throwing the football on a mechanical level. It was incredible. But he's going to look to get his opportunity in Jacksonville. Whether or not he comes back, that's, the NFL is a mysterious beast. But the one thing about Vernon Adams Jr. is, if Vernon Adams Jr. believes in Vernon Adams Jr., he could be the MOP in this league. I have no reservations about saying that, because Zach Collaros and Bo Levi Mitchell have set the standard, especially the last 8 years. They are the guys who come out. They know the league. They're confident, irrespective of both of the injuries they both have had in their past. They know what it takes to win, and they're bona fide winners. I'm not implying that Vernon Adams is there, but he has the ability. He really does, to be so good in this league. But it's all up to him. And he's talked about it before, about trying to understand and balancing, personal expectations with other people's expectations, with pressures, with voices in his head, with everything. And if he gets to a point where he can consistently look in the mirror and say, today I'm the guy, as he probably undoubtedly did against Calgary in week 1, I think that BC will not miss Nathan Rourke at all.
Okay, because I agree with you there, Matthew. I think Winnipeg, and then I see BC, and then Calgary, Saskatchewan, and then Edmonton. Unfortunately, I just don't know if Edmonton can finish more than 5th place again in the West.
Yeah, and the one thing I also want to say about BC is Rick Campbell is so good at understanding a 2-quarterback system. He had it in 2016 when he had Trevor Harris and Henry Burris, and Henry Burris started the year, and then Henry struggled, and Trevor Harris came in, and then he decided to pull the trigger and put Henry Burris back in, and they upset the Calgary Stampeders, one of the great football teams in regular season CFL history. They upset them in the Grey Cup here in Toronto, and Rick Campbell is a great coach, obviously coming from a lineage of great coaches with his father. But he's a Grey Cup winning coach. And I imagine he's the kind of guy who you may not see it in front of camera. You know, he can be mild-mannered in front of camera, but he is a master motivator. Guys who play for Rick Campbell want to play for Rick Campbell, and they believe in playing for him, at least in my experience. That might be different than somebody else's opinion, but it'll be interesting to see how he manages this season, because of any team, I'm thinking about all the teams in the West. Of any team in the West, the one that has the most security at quarterback are the BC Lions, because they have Dane Evans, who's played in 2 Grey Cups. He has more big game experience, championship game experience in this league than Vernon Adams Jr. does. So it'll be interesting to see, depending on the ebbs and flows of the year, how Rick Campbell manages that situation.
Definitely. And Matthew, we're going to wrap this up with one last question. Overall thoughts on the CFL's deal with CBS Sports Network, with 34 games airing in the U.S. and obviously on ESPN 2 or 3, I believe. And do you feel this league is heading into the right direction going into the future?
I really think that this is not a slight at the USFL. It's not a slight at the XFL, because some of those guys played in the CFL. The difference between the CFL and those 2 leagues is CFL is a legacy league. The CFL has been around in different iterations, mind you, for a long time. And you can feel that. And if we can continue to show that to our American audience, I'm not implying that so many hundreds of thousands of people are going to start watching in the United States, but there is a dedicated and devoted, I'm sure you interact with them a lot, there is a dedicated and devoted fan base of CFL fans in the United States,
including my family.
They number in the thousands, and they are very passionate about the Canadian Football League. Almost, it does remind me. It has a college football like atmosphere, but it's like an appreciation for the legacy and tradition of the league. They know that this is a league that gave birth to Warren Moon. They know this is a league that a lot of the offensive concepts started in the CFL that you now see in the NFL. Some of the expansive offenses. I mean, I won't go ahead and imply that Aaron Rodgers plays like a CFL quarterback, but some of his best coaches were Tom Clements is one of the notable winners in CFL history, and he was the quarterback coach for Aaron Rodgers. And I often have said it, and this is only my opinion, that when Aaron Rodgers plays his best, Aaron Rodgers is the best CFL quarterback playing in the NFL. Like he plays the game like a CFL quarterback. He just with just the way that he throws the football. But that, having said all that, the great thing about the Canadian game that Americans can see is this is a game that's been around for so long and that people care about it. And that's what really appeals to American football fans is, and you see it from whether it's SEC football to Division II in North Dakota, the juggernaut that constantly wins the Division II championship, to any real hot major football market. If it's down home and it's homegrown, they care, and that's really cool. And I think it's always a pleasure to I know they simulcast the TSN broadcast. It's always cool to interact with the CFL fans who live in the United States, because they are as passionate, as knowledgeable, as devoted to the game as any CFL fan in Canada.
And I want to again say thank you, Matthew, for coming on. I've been really lucky, man. Dave Naylor, yourself, Mike Hogan, Rick Zamperin. I'm trying to cover the whole league, not just have an Argo podcast, but a CFL podcast. And I really appreciate your time today. And one thing, too, before we wrap this up, the 82 Argos went with that run and shoot offense with Bobo Bilovich and Miles Davis, and that eventually did come over to translate to the NFL as well.
Yeah, and that's the one thing. It's the wonderful thing. If you really sit back and you look at the great plays in the last 25 years in the CFL, if you look at the way that Doug Flutie played in 95, 96, and when Jim Barker was the offensive coordinator, he'll tell you all about it. A lot of those concepts you will see every so often in the NFL. And that's the one thing. There are, I can tell you, always a lot of NFL scouts up in the CFL. There's always guys coming up looking at what coaching, what kind of players, athletes, because those who I've spoken to who have dipped their toes in both leagues say the guys up here are legit. The guys up here can play. For whatever reason, it doesn't matter why they're not playing in the NFL. The guys up here are athletes, and this is absolutely, undeniably, unequivocally, historically, some of the best professional football. No one's saying it's the NFL. That's the thing. The NFL and the CFL are two different things. The NFL is a gargantuan, nonstop circus, a behemoth of lights and sounds and superhuman feats of strength and speed. But the CFL is talent and determination and dedication, and absolutely eye-catching plays. And I think no better example of it last night than that first touchdown in that Edmonton Elks Saskatchewan game, to watch Geno Lewis know how to bait his defensive back to be able to go up and get the football and grab the ball and run in for a touchdown and justify his huge salary with Edmonton. Just shows you the class of player that we have in the CFL.
Absolutely. And it's also a fan-driven league as well, because the access I have with the Argonauts as a media member, and then just Pinball Clements associating with the fans every day. As much as I love the NFL, I wouldn't get these same opportunities in the NFL, and I'm really appreciative of the CFL and the Toronto Argonauts as well, and such as guys like yourself and Dave Naylor and Mike Hogan. There's so many guys I could name that have been so great to come on my show and talk about their careers and the Canadian Football League.
Yeah, we're happy to have you as a member of the CFL family, and I can speak for myself. Keep doing what you're doing, and if you need anything, call anytime.
Definitely. I'm still a work in progress, but just got to keep grinding away, just like football players, one day at a time. Last question. It's not really a question, but Matthew, just for those who are watching or later listening on audio, what advice would you give to somebody who's looking to pursue a career in the media industry, TV or radio? And again, where can my audience follow you on social media?
I don't know who said the quote, but it's true. They always say, think before you speak, but read before you think. And I am a huge proponent of reading and research. If you're trying to get into this business, doesn't matter what your lived experience, what your living truth is. Find the people that you love to read. Find the people who you love to watch. Study them. Study them. Don't become them, but study what makes them great. Study their work ethic, study their process, reach out, ask questions. I can speak not just for myself. There are so many of us who are always willing to answer questions. The media industry is not it's a big industry, and yet it's a small, intimate community. And study, make sure that you allow yourself to try new things, and make sure you make mistakes, but don't be afraid to try something that takes you out of your comfort zone. You can follow me on Instagram at TSN Scianitti, and the same place on Twitter.
All right. Well, Matthew, that was well said. I want to say thank you so much for coming on today, Matthew. And I would really enjoy having you on again as a guest in the future, maybe before the CFL playoffs start as well.
Give me a call. I'll be happy to do it.
Oh, before I let you go, quick 30 seconds. Thoughts on Nick Taylor winning the RBC Canadian Open? I don't know nothing about golf, but I watched it yesterday.
You know what? I'm the same boat as you. I think what Nick Taylor did yesterday was an entire nation of people. And this is the thing about Canadian sports. When a Canadian is on the world stage, when a Canadian plays, and the way the Canadians play is determination, effort through preparation, effort through practice, and a real focus on their craft. To sink a putt, an eagle, to win a PGA Tour event, to be the first Canadian to do it in nearly 70 decades, to do it from 70 feet, it was incredible. And to watch, and I think every Canadian, as they're watching that and enjoying, embracing, learning about the sport of golf, to watch that ball roll in, and as it was getting closer, to feel the swell of emotion that you could feel, being like, holy geez. It will always be Canada's version of Tiger's great putt. I believe it was the 04 or 05 Masters, the in your life Vern Lundquist call, where you just couldn't believe that this was happening. That's what makes golf so cool, because it really is an exercise in determination and often torture to get a small ball in a small hole hundreds of yards away, but to see a Canadian do it and to win on home soil, I certainly, when that ball went in, I literally jumped off my couch. It was really cool.
Absolutely. And thank you. I just wanted to ask you about that as well. But Matthew, I want to say thank you for giving me an hour of your time out of your busy schedule. And hopefully we'll run into you Sunday night at BMO Field at the Argos Hamilton home opener before the game, and get to say hi to you quickly.
Take care, Chris. Looking forward to it.
You too. Thank you so much, Matthew. Have a great night.
Take care. You too.
You too. All right, guys, that was Matthew Scianitti, TSN reporter and CFL on TSN reporter, for coming on. So I hope you guys enjoyed season 6, episode 12 again with Matthew. And if you guys give me a little bit of time, I will download this podcast onto my audio platforms as well. Just to let you guys know, my next live with CDP Sports Talk, again sponsored by Barry Cullen Chevrolet, will be Tuesday, June 13th, tomorrow at 2 p.m. Eastern, with my guest Gary Grube. He's the executive director of All Lacrosse All the Time. I met him a couple weeks ago at the KeyBank Center in Buffalo, New York, for game 1 of the NL Finals between the Buffalo Bandits and the Colorado Mammoths. So Gary's going to come on and talk lacrosse with us and how he got involved in it. And he's the executive director of All Lacrosse All the Time as well. So that'll be season 6, episode 13 as well. Want to wish one of my friends, her name on Twitter is Bomber Woman. Her name is Tina, Bomber Woman on Twitter. She's a huge fan of the Winnipeg Blue Bombers, and today is her birthday. So I want to wish Bomber Woman, aka Tina, a very happy birthday, and hope to see you at the stadium this year. A huge Winnipeg Blue Bombers fan, huge CFL fan. So wanted to wish her a happy birthday as well. Again, the Grey Cup champion Toronto Argonauts will open up the regular season at BMO Field this Sunday, June 18th at 7 p.m. Eastern versus the Hamilton Tiger Cats, and you can purchase tickets at argonauts.ca. And if you can't get down to the game, you can watch it on TSN or TSN 1050 on the radio with Mike Hogan as well. Michael Scianitti will be there on the sidelines for TSN on Sunday night at BMO Field as well. All right, guys, as always, we're going to wrap this show up shortly. Live with CDP Sports Talk is a weekly sports and entertainment talk show hosted by yours truly, Chris Pame, is on weeknights at 8 p.m. Eastern on WQEE 99.1 FM, The Key, the home of Southern sports and talk, the heartbeat of Atlanta. There are going to be occasions where they have baseball games on, and Live with CDP will follow after. So if I find out there's baseball games on, I will let you guys know. Live with CDP Sports Talk will air later on in the evening as well. You can check out the station's radio station. You can check out the radio station's website at wqeefm.radio12345.com. That's wqeefm.radio12345.com. And a shout out to their station manager, Ryan O'Neill, as well. Also, guys, you can check out my website at beacons.ai/Chris D. All my digital content and previous podcasts are on beacons.ai under Chris D. as well. And Live with CDP Sports Talk is always live streamed on these platforms: YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, Twitch, and LinkedIn as well. Live with CDP Sports Talk, again, is sponsored by Barry Cullen Chevrolet Dealership at 905 Woodlawn Road West in the Guelph Auto Mall. Check out barrycullen.com for the newest selection of new and pre-owned GM vehicles, or give them a call at 519-824-0210, or email them at info@barrycullen.com. And also, guys, at Barry Cullen Chevrolet, you can spring into summer with 3.99% financing up to 60 months on a 23 Blazer, Traverse, Equinox. And if you're an eligible Costco member, you can receive up to $750 bonuses on select SUVs, again, at Barry Cullen Chevrolet as well. Live with CDP, you can follow me on TikTok at Live with CDP on TikTok. Again, I post a lot of content there as well. StreamYard is also the official live stream provider of Live with CDP Sports Talk. If you're into webinars or podcasting such as myself, check out StreamYard.com. Finally, guys, we're going to wrap this up. Live with CDP Sports Talk, the audio version is available on these platforms: iHeartRadio, Amazon Music, Google Podcasts, Anchor FM, Apple Podcasts, Breaker, Pocket Casts, Radio Public, Spotify, Castbox, LinkedIn, Stitcher, and Tuned In, and weeknights at 8 o'clock on WQEE 99.1 FM in Georgia as well. Before I wrap this up, guys, I'm just going to finish up my interview with Spencer Nichols from the Toronto Argonauts at training camp here a couple weeks ago at the University of Guelph.
Meeting them in the meetings and seeing them on the field and how they interact with all the guys here, it seems like a great atmosphere, and I couldn't be happier to be here with the Argos.
You're wearing 73 for training camp, but what number did you wear at Western, and what's your favorite number? And is there a story behind your number?
Yeah, I wore 88 at Western. My first number, I was an offensive lineman growing up, and I wore 58 all the way through. So I kind of transferred that 8 over to 88 into their fullback tight end game. So I was wearing 88 there. Repping 73 right now is my rookie number, and I'm fine with it. I like it. I'm good with whatever they give me. So
okay. Well, Spencer, I want to say thank you so much for doing this. And I want to say congratulations on getting drafted by the Toronto Argonauts. And I want to wish you and the team all the success this season and trying to repeat as Grey Cup champion. All right, guys, that clip, that interview was courtesy of my YouTube channel, Chris Palme, Live with CDP Sports Talk. Please hit the subscribe and like notification. And again, that was Spencer Nichols from the Toronto Argonauts, who's a fullback with the team this year as well. So again, I want to say thank you to my guest, Matthew Scianitti from TSN, reporter with SportsCentre and on the CFL on TSN, for coming on today. And just give me a little bit of time and I will download this episode to all our audio platforms as well. And I want to say thank you to everybody for watching us live stream and on audio platforms. And again, the next Live with CDP Sports Talk again will be tomorrow at 2 o'clock Eastern with Gary Grube, the executive director of All Lacrosse All the Time. So if you're a field lacrosse, box lacrosse fan, NLL fan, check out Live with CDP tomorrow at 2 o'clock Eastern, season 6, episode 13, again with my guest Gary Grube. Again, I want to say thank you to Sarah Twitch for coming on today, and Matthew Scianitti from TSN for coming on as well. I hope everybody has a great evening, and we'll see you guys back here tomorrow for season 6, episode 13 with Gary Grube from the All Lacrosse All the Time as well. Have a great night, everybody, and also enjoy the NBA Finals tonight, Game 5 between Denver and Miami. Denver win, and they are the champs for the first time. Miami wins, they can bring it back to Miami for Game 6. So enjoy the NBA Finals tonight, 8:30 tonight on TSN and ESPN in the States. Have a great evening, everybody, and thanks for watching and listening to Live with CDP Sports Talk.